welcome to In Her Words, Working Conversations by Women. I'm your host, Tando Mazibulo. Today we have an amazing guest, and we're thrilled to introduce Siphokazi Jonas, a best-selling author, poet, writer, as well as a producer. She has touched lives in South Africa as well as beyond SA. With her debut book, Weeping Becomes a River, that has a deep resonance with the nations and offering a powerful reflection of identity, resilience, and human experience. Welcome, Siphokazi Jonas. Hi, Siphokazi.
Thank you so much. I'm very well, thank you. Tando, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I just want to know what inspired you to be a writer, be a poet, be a producer, a performer, especially because we come from South Africa and the notion is about art. Can you actually make it within art?
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I'd probably have to go back to school because I'd say the thing that inspired me to write was reading. I think my experience of books as a child was this place that opened up whole other worlds where I could escape into, these fantastical worlds that was very different from the real world because, I grew up in the early 90s, late 90s and so on. And just having the imagination be stretched and expanded and realizing that it's not just the place that I'm in, that there are so many other experiences, there are so many other histories and so on. So I think the excitement of reading itself was really key in my journey. And then by the time I got to high school, it was the realization, I was very involved in drama and so on, I was that arts kid. But the time I got to high school, it was this realization that the stories were not just the stories of, dead white men that we were studying in school, but that I also had access to storytelling, that I could tell my stories, that the insult me that my mom would tell me, that was part of creating the world. Even like, if you think about Bible stories at church, that was part of creating this really creative imagination. And so those are the things that actually got me into writing in the first place. All the other aspects, I think, when it comes to producing, for example, it's my own insistence on telling the stories of Black women in particular. And you're not always going to be able to get that grant. You're going to make your application. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. But not, you may get a lot of no's in that. But when you're able to tell your own stories, you can control the narrative. And so producing film, producing in theater has been about having that control over the kind of narratives, the positive narratives around Black women's stories.
I think that's a very powerful thing to say, because a lot of the time our stories aren't told into the world, and we rely so much on media and hearing about stories, but the stories about our cultures and our stories are not told. So it makes sense that you just wanted to tell them, and you're resilient in it because it's not an easy, because no's come at you quick. So how do you keep on going? I know a lot of people, they hear no's and they're like, oh my gosh, let's hang it up. So how do you keep on going beyond the no? Because these are important stories.
Yes. Great question. I think, first of all, no's hurt. I'm not going to pretend that, it's just like, oh, no, it's fine. Okay, we move on. No's hurt. And they can make you doubt yourself. They make you doubt your worth and whether you should be continuing on this path, whether you are the right person to be telling these stories and so on. I think I've been very fortunate I've had my ups and downs in the journey from starting. I mean, I didn't even initially start with studying English and drama. My parents were like, artists don't make money. Okay. You can't study acting. So figure something else out. And so I remember I registered for biotechnology because someone, that thing of like, is a family friend, someone somewhere did this. So they come into they're like, I don't know what's happening, but sure. So my first year and I failed. And I love telling the story because I hadn't failed in high school except for accounting. I did 1 year of accounting. It's the only subject I ever failed. And I was like, this is not for me. But I registered for biotechnology. I definitely knew it wasn't for me within a month of being at university. But I failed. I failed that year. Actually, the only course I passed was a minor course, which was English, actually. And it was this conversation that we were having that at least would allow me to go and register for a BA in English and drama and going down that route. Now, while I was in there, so all this time, I'm still continuing to do poetry on the side. I'm still writing. I'm still participating in performances and so on. And then when I was there, I remember in second year, my lecturer said, you know what, you would be really great as an academic. You should consider that part. Now, I'm sitting there and I'm really balancing between, okay, artists don't make money. Mm-hmm. Here's an opportunity to study what I like, but possibly take it down this path, this academic path. So I thought, okay, fine. I think I should be an academic because at least I'll still be doing English, I'll still be doing drama, but I won't be doing the thing that doesn't bring in money.
Yeah.
And then I think by the time I got to my master's, I was like, no, I was actually busy applying for my PhD, and I was like, why am I doing this? This whole time, I'm still doing performances on the side, right? Yeah. I'm like, why am I doing this? I feel like I'm doing this because it's expected of me, because this seems like the next natural step. But eventually, end of 2017, I was like, no, I'm done. I need to go and spend time putting all of my effort, putting all of my eggs in this particular basket and trying. Manitibando, you see, when there's at least Benzami. So I went and it was difficult. It was so difficult in the beginning. And so the idea of sort of having resilience for no is because of what it's taken to get to where I am, to get to what I'm doing, is that it has taken knocks, it has taken failure, it has taken all of that rejection. But I have such a certainty about that it's my calling that even the no cannot be greater than my actual certainty that this is my life's calling, this is my purpose. And so, but also I have beautiful people around me. I have a supportive manager, I have a supportive family. I have people that are able to lift me up when I have, a particularly painful no. And even now I'm doing some things where I'm just trying to be aware of how no's affect me. So I had a no recently, I think it was last week. We live with that rejection.
It's a no every week. If you're especially on your own, it's a no every week.
No, because we're trying. We're shooting shots.
You're shooting our shots. And sometimes you miss. That's okay.
Sometimes they know no's because you're not trying. You're not actually putting yourself out there.
Exactly.
So I remember I had to just do a little bit of self-care and just sort of like meditate and just really, because I could feel that in my body it was affecting me. There's this kind of the tension that comes because it hurts. Yeah. And so just taking some time out, I took the rest of that day out just to really process that the no doesn't match, that things aren't going to happen. It's just this route, this path isn't open for me. This is not the right alignment. This is not and that's okay. And I will find in a different space, in a different way with the right partners. Not even, saying, you know what, it's fine, but pussy, I don't know.
Maybe. They missed out on me.
Right? Like, maybe it's just for someone else. Maybe it's just for someone else. And they're waiting for their thing. So I'm like, no, my thing will come as well. Mm-hmm. So it's been significant in just knowing this is meant to be and I'm committed to it. So no's are just part of it.
I think that's very powerful that you get to sit with your no's and be like, you know what, this really hurts. Like, is this a rejection? Because what you're doing is a very personal thing. Your art is personal. Your writing is personal. And it sometimes will feel like, oh, is this a rejection of me? And at least you sit in it and you're like, no, this is not a rejection of me. It's just we're not in alignment. And I think that's powerful because at times we take those no's so personally that, we disregard everything that we've come into and we just like, okay, because I got to know it's a no. And I genuinely can resonate with that in my own journey. We'll talk about that like on the side if you want. This is about you. But I want to speak about, your book. What came into play you now writing this book?
Sure. First of all, I had to get over about, I'd say 20 years of, it took 20 years for me to get to a point where I felt ready to get published. It didn't take 20 years to write the book, but it took 20 years to get from a point, again, actually, it was a kind of experience where I'd come from high school And I was publishing in high school anthologies, and I was that kid who's like, we're going to writing competitions. You're doing Stedfords, you're doing this, doing this. So you used to like, okay, no, I can do this. This is my thing. Then I remember I joined this poetry group or poetry. It was online at the time, way before social media, and okay, maybe not way before. It's like 2004, and I got feedback on a poem that devastated me. And I just lost my confidence. I lost confidence in my writing. And mind you, when I was in grade 11, my first thing was like, within 5 years, I'll have a book. My dream was to get published. It was like, within 5 years, when I've gone to university, I'll study this, do this, but I'll have a book. It devastated me. I lost confidence. Then I was like, you know what? Then I discovered spoken word, which is, more performance based. And I was like, okay, this is the path. This is more of the path that I'm going in. But already, I had a theater background, so it was easy. I really enjoyed it for the longest time. And I'd have people come up to me and say, hey, have you considered a book? I'm like, I'm good. So even though I wasn't always realizing, but that particular feedback made me lose my sense of self, made me lose because I felt like there was this way in which there was an expectation for writing within, the Western canon, what the right kind of poetry is. And I'm coming from the Eastern Cape, I'm coming from the Komani, and I'm writing, these are my stories, this is what I'm writing about. But it was, when I look back, ironically, it was great feedback. It was actually great feedback. But because I just come from a space where I was, super affirmed, and everyone thought I was the business and everything was good, I didn't know how to take like constructive criticism. And again, it felt like very personal. So I remember in 2015, the first time I had a publisher come to me and say, hey, do you have a manuscript by any chance? Like, I'd love to read something and just see. So for a couple of years, I have had different publishers come to me and say, do you have something I could read? I'd love to possibly publish you. I'm like, no, I'm good. It's fine. It's all right. Don't worry about it. But I built this complex in my head that I was not worthy of that I couldn't reach that. And, as you grow, you have your peers also like publishing, and it's really exciting, but you're like, not me. So I think a number of things happened that got to that place of saying yes, where, first I'd taken a sabbatical from constant working, constant gigging, because I felt very out of alignment. I felt like I wasn't working in the areas that I wanted to be working in, that I wasn't creating as expansively as I want to. I was doing, corporate gigs and stuff, and everything was great. You're making good money. But I was like, something's not right. Like inside, there's no alignment about the work that I'm creating. So I need to take time off. I need to step away from just the noise and be in silence. And eventually, when, a couple of wonderful things that happened in order to get a publisher, then again, I had to take time off, probably about 7-8 months of time off to just finish working on the manuscript, doing the editing, getting it from where it was at the time into a book that can actually be published. But I also feel like I was ready to tell my story in a certain way without restriction, without sort of overthinking reception, and to reflect, because I've come such a long way from those experiences that it was time. And I have this thing about, even when I write, someone asked, I was at a high school recently, and they asked, how do you deal with the pain of writing, like, putting out something that's really painful to you? I said, I don't write work that I haven't really processed the incident or whatever the issue is. I need to first, it's not therapy, it's not a journal, it's art. So it needs crafting. It needs to be put, you need to process it, put it through so much. And so I think I was just ready eventually.
I was about to ask you that how do you emotionally connect and resonate with your audience? But I think, in a way, speaking to you, and just with the few minutes that we've spoken, you're so authentic in being yourself and speaking about your journey, that you've processed so much that it's so easy to, when you speak to me. You're speaking directly to me because you've processed so much of your own stuff and your own journey. And I'm listening and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just went through this last year. I decided, you know what, I'm taking a breather from it all and I'm processing it. And that's funny that was the next question I was going to ask you, but because you are so in tune with yourself, it's very easy that you speak so deeply into someone, into your audience. Do you find that, is that something that people tell you all the time? I think that would be the next question.
Quite a bit. Quite a bit. I found that authenticity is just about creating space. Well, not just about, but it creates space. Because when I'm honest and authentic about where I am, and I'm not trying to put on a mask, I'm not trying to perform and just create an illusion or a persona for you, it gives you space to be able to feel comfortable to share, to be able to connect. And that for me has been one of the biggest blessings of actually live performance. Because that's what it's given me, that connection of like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying. I'm taking risks. I don't know. It's not like I've been figured out. I was speaking again at a high school, and I was like, let me just give you, because teenagers are struggling with identity and figuring out. I was like, here's a spoiler alert. None of us know what we're doing. None of us know what we're doing. We're just trying. So yeah, I think that makes the human connection more real.
You speak about, speaking at high schools. Is that something that you're also kind of passionate about, just mentoring or just talks with younger people?
Yes, I mean I've had some experience teaching at teaching drama and poetry at a primary school, working with I think when I was doing my honors, I did some drama education and so on. So I've always had that passion. My dream is actually for the book and a lot of the poems to be in school syllabi, because it's real. I speak about real things, about the loss of language and culture, and going to a former Model C school, having to put aside Xhosa so that you can pick up English, and then rocking up as Lalini, and you're the cousin to the cousins who speak English, and you don't know. You're disconnected, like what that does to you, but you go back even into the space that speaks English, you don't fully belong there. So I thought it was mostly, just like, hey, but these little ones, these younger ones are also struggling a lot around identity with those things that in between us. So it has been a joy. And this is something I'm also hoping to do, to speak to at many high schools, and but not just to speak, to listen to them, right? To actually hear what when my talk, I had a talk, but it was like half of it was us in conversation and having them give feedback. So it's to hear and to speak at the same time.
That's really amazing. Would you like to tell us, without giving too much away, about Weeping Becomes a River?
Absolutely. I mean, I can.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I could also read something.
I'm gonna go get my copy now. Like,
I could also read something. No, I think let me actually, because of what we're speaking about now that I just mentioned. I'm gonna read it.
Oh, we get a reading! Woo! We get a treat today.
That's the best way to tell you about it. Yeah. But just quickly about the structure of the book, because one of my peers was like, I don't know if it's even right to call it a poetry collection because of the way I've structured it, which is part story, part insomi with poetry, right? So there's a whole story that goes throughout the book. There's a whole plot line that goes from beginning to end. But in between the episodes of Linsomi that I'm telling, or Inganekwane in isiZulu, there's poetry that speaks back.
For other audiences, people who might listen outside the world, that just Xhosa and Zulu, stories.
Traditional storytelling, right? Traditional forms of oral storytelling. So there's a whole story that happens, and then the poetry. But I'm gonna read a poem that I think speaks to exactly what I'd mentioned just earlier. So it's called Inosculation. I wanted to write about my people making peace when love chafes into a lesion, burning impepo to smudge a space open, a circle of neighbors sipping umqombothi from the same gourd, spilling animal blood to restore ties between the departed and those who remain. But the ritual of gathering which our parents chose is in the grape juice blood of Jesus, imbibed out of a shot glass. To perform a version of Africanness on the page, persuade your eye away from this calamity. Children who are defanged to accommodate a colonial tongue are reduced to a mouthful of dentures, reciting clan names to camouflage the disruption, in conversations with extended family who smirk at the prosthesis of English. Now, if I'm to yield something authentic, a proverb, an idiom, a description of tradition, I scavenge the dropped fruit fermenting at the base of Google's omniscience. In the days after Utamkulu left us, I watched Otadumnini unfasten the skin of a sheep with a knife from jaw to tail in the same backyard where we shot marbles, leaving enough room behind the violence of the blade for Utangu to plunge a fist against the fat and flesh and separate the fur. I am an incomplete slaughter, alive and naked. All my cultures reconcile me to myself through bleeding figures. I compose imibongo with split tongue, umtendeleko omcha, foraging through family history with mother and father for things I can translate into poems. We dispel the shame of loss when we are a forest of trees exposed and grafting at the point of abrasion, willing to turn our vulnerability towards us. So this poem speaks to to that experience of shifting.
We're gonna cry today.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's so beautiful. I think so many of us would resonate with a lot of that, going to Model C schools, coming home, whether it's in Imakaya or the township of Soweto, and you don't fit in. You are this enigma of a thing where, you're speaking English and you don't resonate with your community, but you are not white also to be in the white schools. So yeah, that's very powerful that you tell yourself.
You see, the book is also sometimes, because there's speaking a little bit about that, like quite a bit about that trauma, but I think the book is also about the healing work that's necessary. You know what I mean? So it's the healing that we do for ourselves, but also together as a community. So as in that last stanza where I say, I'm writing I'm writing imibongo with a split tongue. It's actually accepting that in-betweenness. It's accepting that being split, that sense of not belonging to both, and kind of crafting something new together. It's like, okay, fine, I didn't get Xhosa, it's Nsokotileo, because that's not what happened. I definitely still speak it. And then there's English on the side. But what is the version of us that is very much valuable and valid in the in-betweenness, in the mix of all of these different things, in the different cultures, in the different. So rather than feeling bad and feeling like we are not Black enough, we are not whatever enough, it's to say, okay, these are the things that I have gained from this experience. These are the things that I have lost. Now, what can I combine? How do we, even as a community, it's like there's also a multi-generational responsibility that is there to say, our parents are meant to still be teaching us things. Our elders are meant to be teaching us things. We're meant to search for the knowledge ourselves, but also accept that there's like a newness to it. It's not, I don't believe there's a pure version of culture that we get to return to. It's constant, it's alive, it's organic, it's moving, and we get to participate in that recreation. So that's really what this book, I think, says.
And that is a powerful message. Wow, I'm really together myself. I did not expect that. I am a crier, but I keep it together in my podcast very much. Try to keep it together. So that was just.
I always say, by the way, it says weeping becomes a river betuna.
You know what? It's in the text. It's in the text. What was I? Your work is basically you're advocating for a group who is like in the middle, a generation who is in the middle, a middle generation, and a lot of the time with that, when you are a generation in the middle, you get so much criticism for not doing things the way elders are doing, and the younger generation is like, what are you guys actually doing? What is your role in this,
Absolutely.
So do you see your work as a message of activism, and how important is activism to you?
I've like this word for me holds a lot more power than has been I think it's overused in some ways. I think the key word is the active, right? It's important to actually be active. Um, some people call me an activist. I don't necessarily call myself an activist. I advocate as much as I can. I use my art in particular to be able to speak to things that matter. I think we should all care, at the very least, like, because there are people that I really, really respect who have committed their lives, who've committed their bodies to being able to do this work. And I try and show up and support as much as I can. I feel like it's such an amazing, like it holds so much meaning being an activist, because I think it's also a lifestyle. So I don't use that easily with myself, but apparently my work is a kind of artivism. So there's this phrase that's used, artivism, which is art activism, art as activism. I just try and speak up about things that I care about, things that are important in the world, and speak truth to power. So I think the invitation is for all of us to not be silent. The invitation is for all of us to have solidarity. So yeah, I don't have an easy answer to that question because of how I feel about that word. But yeah, I try and speak about things that I really, really think are important.
I don't think you should have any feeling about that word. I know it's heavy, and I know, especially coming from our country, it's a heavy, heavy word. But I think you advocate for so many people, and you use your platform and your voice and your art in such a manner where it advocates for a generation, for multiple generations, that you shouldn't shy away from it. I think you are one of the people who are advocates for our generation, for our culture as South Africans, as Black women, as a Xhosa woman. So I don't think you should shy away from that word. I think you carry it in a manner that is very authentic. And you might be like, I don't know. But I don't know about that. But you do, advocacy and activism is not one thing on the spectrum. It's so many
right.
things. And I think you carry that advocacy. And I worked in advocacy at one point.
I hear you. Look, I'm never gonna put it on a bio. Like, I'm never gonna put it on like a Twitter bio. But my hope is to embody showing up and having solidarity. That's way more important than like they put there in the bio, activist, poet. It's just, I have friends who get arrested.
But not all of us can get arrested. We need to bail out people as well and speak on other platforms. We need to be in meetings. Some of us need to be in the meetings where,
policies are being written, and yes,
policies are in. That's activism as well. We can't all be on doing the groundwork. We appreciate those people, but there's to a full spectrum of unity and activism. There's many roles to fulfill. So I think you are. And I will put it in the description box.
Make sure she didn't name herself. This is me. I'm giving her the title.
Okay, I'll say I see her as an activist, a voice of our generation. So please, from me. Just
fair.
I know you have a lot on your plate. What are your future plans, and what do you want to just do with your platform of writing, poetry, performance, filmmaking, producing? What is it that you see yourself doing in the near future or now, or planning to do?
Oh. Okay, so I think there's two parts to my answer. The first is just the, very sort of technical aspect or logistical aspect. For example, adapting the book into various other genres. There'll be an audiobook, an album, a stage production. So over the next couple of years, it's going to be a children's book. So it's going to be a number of things. But when I think about the much broader question of like, why am I doing this? You know, why am I taking those no's to keep going? Besides paying rent. Um, I really have always, first of all, I have a very hopeful, I think this is my personality. Like I have hope for like, I feel I really believe in doing things lovingly. So even when calling people out, when, you know, speaking to, you know, unfair power structures and all of these things, um, I love my people. I love my people. And I am very adamant about bringing nuanced, holistic, complicated narratives into the broader popular, both into the zeitgeist, but also just when I think so, I studied literature. Mm-hmm. And you think about the way in which Black people have been represented in Western literature for the longest time, and then that's reproduced in schools. So for me, it's important to have books, to have films, to have, you know, stage production, all the things that counter those toxic and harmful narratives that show us as more. Okay, you know, I have this thing where, so, you know, sometimes you think about, okay, and I've been asked like, oh, you know, why don't you do ads like commercials and stuff? I'm like, you know, sometimes I look at an ad like it's a washing powder ad, and the portrayal, this caricatured portrayal of a Black woman, I'm like, I don't know this woman.
We're all dancing and singing while you're doing the washing. Who is doing that?
Like, you know, or even if it is like a snapshot, but you know that that woman is, I mean, there's a poem I write about a domestic worker, but she's also like umama webhaki, and we see that, you know, she has this, like, she's a mother, she is you know, involved in her church, she's these things, she's not just a domestic worker that takes care of the kids gamete, right? So just full spectrum. So mine is to contribute to the positive narratives around marginalized communities, Black women in particular, but on a whole broader spectrum as well. So that's why I will keep taking no's and rejections, because at the end, I want to make sure that all this work is available and is adding to how we are rewriting and seeing ourselves in particular.
And thank you for your work. We want a Netflix special mini series with weeping.
I'm sure they'll be watching and listening.
You know what? We're putting it out there. We're manifesting it. We want a whole series. This is a girl. We want to know where she's a model. We want to know that story. We want to see it.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much.
And you know what? When it happens, I'm coming back to you. Hey, I need to be back on the podcast. So we're gonna be like,
remember when we said this is gonna happen? Siphokazi, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for, you know, speaking to me, speaking to us. I know it's not going to just be me, and your time, you know, making the time for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Thando. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you.